And you spoke about how there are a number of people saying that the private sector is what needs to get going to get us started, and that there's segments of the government who are saying that we need to cut more spending, and that we need to lower taxes even more. Right. So I'm not sure how they think that that's going to, taking money out of the economy is going to help jumpstart it. I have no idea. But I do want to show you and the viewers a segment of Alan Greenspan on,
the question is how,
I think it's Meet
Chairman Greenspan. I mean, there's a view on Wall Street. Jamie Dimon has said this publicly, the CEO of JP Morgan, when he questioned Federal Reserve Chairman Bernanke by saying, look, there's a cumulative effect to what this administration has done to try to remedy the excesses of the financial system that resulted in collapse. That cumulative effect of regulation and capital requirements and all the rest may ultimately be depressing economic growth by keeping major corporations from making the sort of investments that Austin say are crucial. What do you say?
I say the evidence is reasonably strong that that is a correct evaluation. There's one thing that we have never discussed, which is how do we get what is now really an excess of $500 billion in liquid assets held in non-financial corporations in the United States, largely as a result that they refused or could not find profitable opportunities to invest in. So they put it in cash flow and put it in liquid assets. How do you create a degree of certainty about the long-term future that would induce the people who hold those liquid assets to invest them in long-term assets, because this is the only source of expansion, which is very large, in which debt is not relevant. You don't need to borrow. All you have to do is to pull those funds which are sitting there because they don't know where else to profitably invest them. If we can get that going, it's a major positive.
That particular segment, what struck me is about Greenspan, there's some other things the other person said that I agree with, but Greenspan was pointing out how there is at least $500 billion sitting in liquid assets that the companies don't need. They don't have invested in anything because people are concerned about whether or not they can find an investment that they will make money back on within the time period that they want to make money back on it. While at the same time, our country needs investment. Right. We need companies to invest in our nation in order to get it going. And Greenspan basically just said that there's money sitting out there and we need to figure out how to get that money flowing. So I was wondering, what did you think about that? Because it's like and if I had let that play longer, they just kind of went on. They didn't even discuss what that really meant. Right. So what do you think?
Well, it goes to help people understand one of the fundamental characteristics of our system, that our economic system is primarily driven by the profit motive. Right. I mean, Greenspan said it himself. They, meaning the corporations, cannot find opportunities in which to invest these liquid assets that will give them the kind of return that they're looking for.
Let me say, before you go ahead, is that first he said they refuse. Right. And then I don't know if he meant to correct himself or he was just saying there's two things. Right. Some refuse, others cannot find. So I wanted to point that out because I was amazed he said they refuse or. Right. You know.
Well, they refuse, or whatever the rationale may be. Right. They will not move these funds. Right. And that goes to show you that one of the main characteristics of our economics is we live in a capitalist system. Right. And it is the profit motive, not human need, that drives the economy. Because human need would dictate, well, let's not sit on these funds. Let's put these funds to work for good use. Right. Let's invest them in projects that might return us a profit, but at the same time employ perhaps thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And that, points out, one, the nature of our system, and also the irrationality of our system, and also one of the shortcomings of our system, that, human need takes second place to private profit. And that's unfortunate. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
It's that way because, as Greenspan said, people refuse to make the investment. They have that power. And so this again points the need to what Dr. King said in 1967 in his book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? In the chapter on, I think it was called The World House, he said we needed a radical transformation of our socio-economic system. I remember when I was a little boy, and that was a long time ago. I'm 57 now.
Yeah.
But when I was about 10 or 11 years old, my aunt Joan brought home an album that had been given to her. And I won't go into the story of who gave her the album, but an album was given to her, and she brought it home to me to play. Now this was easily, this had to be 65, 64, 65. And the name of the album was In the Struggle for Human Dignity. And it was the first, I had never seen an album of a speech.
Okay.
You know, all the albums that we got as kids were music albums.
Right.
This album was a speech
Right.
given by Martin Luther King at the New York Armory when he returned from receiving the Nobel Peace Prize.
Okay.
And I'll never forget, as a little boy, you know, and sometimes I wonder why I even remember these things, but I think it made so much sense to me at that time because, you know, at that time I was going to Sunday school and stuff, and we were taught to the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, help the poor, you know, blessed are the meek, they shall inherit the earth, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. You know, so I heard Dr. King say on this record album that he was talking about we had so much surplus food in America. And he said the surplus food was sitting in huge storage facilities. And apparently somebody had written something about this, and they were saying, we don't know what to do with all this surplus food we have, all this surplus wheat, surplus grain, surplus corn. And Dr. King said, I know where we can store that food, in the bellies of the children that go to bed hungry at night. I will never forget, and I don't know why I remember. I had no political conscience at that time. I would, you know.
Maybe you did more than you realized.
It was, you know, I was in elementary school, and I think I might have been at that time in the fifth grade at best. The fifth grade, maybe sixth grade. But I think fifth grade, but I'll never forget that. And I think I remember it because it seemed to be in line with a lot of the religious training that I was getting.
That,
you know,
that foundation that you had been taught.
That's right.
And then he made it alive with what was going on today.
And see, the parallel here is Dr. King was, well, what do we do with the surplus food?
That's right.
And Greenspan's talking about, what do we do with the surplus capital? You know, with these, he could have said liquid, but really it was surplus capital that we have. You know, you put it to work for the benefit of people.
That's right.